From the outside, it's just a tray of food. But inside the world's toughest prisons, that tray carries far more than a meal. It carries meaning. It tells stories of survival, power, punishment, and the thin line between humanity and control. In this documentary, we travel through 8 of the most feared prisons in the developed world, uncovering the truth about what inmates really eat and what those meals reveal about the societies that serve them. Inside the United States, we begin with ADX Florence in Colorado, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Here, men who haven't touched another human being in years are handed trays through steel doors. Meals are served without words, without eye contact, often cold before they reach the cell. Then we move to San Quentin State Prison in California, where death row inmates live with one of the most unpredictable menus in the country. Sometimes a hot meal, other times spoiled leftovers from the main yard. From there, we go to Rikers Island in New York, where chaos defines every hour. Food fights, missing trays, and overcrowded kitchens show how neglect and corruption have turned mealtime into a daily gamble. Then to the sweltering South, Louisiana State Penitentiary, known as Angola Prison, a place once built on slave plantation soil, where inmates still work the fields and eat what the state decides they deserve. Across the Atlantic, we enter HMP Prison Belmarsh in London, home to terrorists, spies, and organized crime figures. Meals there are standardized, measured by calorie count and cost, not comfort. Yet, behind closed doors, inmates swap spices, trade sugar, and turn basic rations into small tokens of freedom. In HMP Prison Manchester, known to many as Strangeways, the story deepens. Built in the 1800s, its kitchens still echo with the sounds of rebellion, hunger strikes, and a fight for dignity disguised as a fight for flavor. Further north, in Canada, Kingston Penitentiary, once the oldest maximum security prison in the country, reveals a different kind of struggle. Here, reforms promise change, but years of cost-cutting turned hope into repetition. Bland oatmeal breakfasts, canned vegetables, powdered juice. Inside Millhaven Institution, the story continues. Inmates cook from scraps, invent recipes using instant noodles, and trade flavor packets like currency. The food system might be modern, but its soul remains trapped in routine. And finally, our journey takes us beyond North America and Europe to 2 prisons that redefine what discipline means in the modern world. In Australia's Goulburn Correctional Centre, dubbed the Supermax Down Under, security trumps everything, even taste. Every meal is inspected, every calorie recorded, every inmate watched as he eats in silence. Then, across the Pacific, in Japan's Fuchū Prison, meals are precise, balanced, and timed to the minute. Yet behind that order lies a darker truth. Obedience disguised as nourishment, control hidden beneath the perfection of presentation. By the time this story ends, you will see more than just prison meals. You'll see what they stand for. The invisible system that decides who deserves warmth, who deserves taste, and who deserves nothing at all. You'll see how the richest nations on earth can still serve the poorest forms of compassion, one tray at a time. And before we begin this journey, kindly like this video to help more people discover the truth behind these walls. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what prison food looks like in your country or what you've personally experienced. Your voice might help others understand the hidden side of the system. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is just one part of a deeper look into the real world behind bars. The first sound is the click of steel meeting steel. Then silence. The kind that presses against your chest until you can hear your own heartbeat. In the middle of Colorado's desert plain, ADX Florence rises like a concrete fortress carved from the earth itself. The fences hum with electricity. The sand around them never moves. No footprints, no life. Inside cell D32, the lights have been on since 4 a.m. Marcus Eagle Dawson sits on the edge of his concrete bunk, his hands inked with fading tattoos that crawl up his forearms, an eagle spreading its wings, a compass pointing nowhere. His cell is the size of a parking space, 9 feet long, 7 wide. A slit of glass lets in a blade of morning light, but shows nothing beyond dust and sky. He hears the rattle of the food cart before it reaches his block. Wheels echo through the hallway, squealing like a warning. Then the hiss of air pressure as the steel flap on his door unlocks. A tray slides through. Metal touches concrete with a flat clang. The flap snaps shut again. He waits. He always waits, counting to 10 before moving. It's the only part of the day he controls. When he finally crouches, the smell hits first. Bleach, metal, and something faintly sour. Breakfast is 2 scrambled eggs, pale and uneven, a slice of toast stiff as cardboard, and a carton of milk the color of watered paint. Beside it, a spoon, plastic, dull-edged, the kind that bends if you press too hard. He eats slowly, not for the taste, but to fill the minutes. Every bite echoes in the stillness, amplified by the concrete walls. Somewhere down the tier, another inmate yells, then laughs at his own voice. The sound bounces through the corridor like an unwanted memory. Lunch comes at 11 sharp. No human voice calls it. The cart simply rolls past again, mechanical, predictable. This time it's chicken stew, brown gravy, gray meat. The vegetables have dissolved into something unrecognizable. Marcus eats half of it, then stops. He stares at the tray, thinking of a kitchen 2 decades ago, his daughter sitting on the counter helping him mix pancake batter. He can still smell the syrup. Now, his world smells only of disinfectant. By late afternoon, the walls begin to buzz from the air vents. The desert heat presses against the concrete. Sweat trickles down his temple. He stands and begins to pace. 3 steps forward, 3 back, until he hears the next tray slide in. Dinner. A lump of pasta drowned in tomato paste, a slice of white bread, a cookie so hard it could break teeth. He looks at the bread for a long time before tearing it in half. He leaves the rest untouched. Somewhere outside, thunder rolls across the horizon. Inside, Marcus sits on the floor, tray beside him, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The hum of the ventilation is the only reminder that air still moves. He closes his eyes and listens to it until it becomes something else, a whisper, a memory, a sound that almost feels human. But then the noise changes. A metallic crash echoes from down the tier. Another inmate, angry. A tray thrown, food splattered against the wall. Guards shouting. Footsteps pounding closer. Marcus stays still. The commotion builds until he hears the hiss of tear gas and the dull thud of shields. The silence that follows feels heavier than before. When the lights dim to evening mode, Marcus slides the unfinished tray toward the door. He knows someone will collect it. He also knows tomorrow's tray will look the same. In a place built to erase individuality, even hunger follows routine. He presses his palm against the cool concrete wall, tracing invisible lines beneath the surface. The tattoos on his skin feel older tonight. His stomach growls, but he ignores it. Hunger is the one thing they can't take away. It's his last reminder that he's still alive. Outside the cell, the desert wind carries no sound. Inside, a man waits for morning and another tray of food that tastes like yesterday's silence. The ocean breeze dies before it ever reaches the inside. From a distance, San Quentin looks almost peaceful, perched on the edge of San Francisco Bay, where the water glimmers like glass under the sun. But behind those stone walls, the air changes. It's heavier, slower, filled with the echoes of footsteps and the metallic clank of trays hitting steel tables. In the lower block kitchen, a man named Derek Tone Walters ties his apron tight. The letters of his tattoo, faith over fear, crawl up his forearm, half faded, half proud. He's been working the kitchen line for 7 years. His job isn't just to cook, it's survival. You keep busy in San Quentin or you go mad. The kitchen hums like a factory. Steam rises from steel pots as another batch of grits boils under flickering fluorescent light. Derek stands near the industrial oven, pulling out pans of cornbread baked that morning. Around him, men in hairnets move mechanically, the smell of powdered potatoes and canned beans filling the air. "Keep it moving," shouts the kitchen officer, tapping the clipboard. Breakfast service in 5. Derek doesn't look up. He's seen this scene 1,000 times. The officers bark, the inmates obey, the cycle never changes. But today feels different. The air smells off, sour and damp. The refrigerator in the corner has been leaking again, and the sour milk mixes with the scent of burnt bread. He wipes his forehead, knowing he'll eat this same food later. That's the rule. You make what you'll eat. By 6:30 a.m., the line forms in the chow hall. Hundreds of men shuffle forward, trays in hand, each one wearing the same faded blue uniform. The guards stand on the rail above, scanning the crowd with detached eyes. The menu board lists, Oatmeal, bread slice, apple milk. But the oatmeal looks more like gray paste, the apple bruised, the milk slightly warm. Inmate Luis Ortega, a wiry man with a spider tattoo on his neck, sits across from Derek. He pushes the bowl with a look of disgust. Same S asterisk 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 every day, he mutters. Derek shrugs. Could be worse. Could be Florence. Luis lets out a dry laugh. Yeah, could be the whole. They eat in silence, the only sounds being metal spoons scraping trays and the echo of boots pacing across the floor. Food in San Quentin isn't meant for pleasure. It's fuel, rationed by calories and cost. Each inmate's meal costs less than $2 a day. The bread arrives in bulk, baked days earlier. The fruit is donated, usually the ones stores refuse to sell. But sometimes, just sometimes, something feels almost human. On Thanksgiving, they get turkey loaf and instant mashed potatoes. On Christmas, maybe a slice of pie. Those moments are rare, but they remind them there's still a world outside these walls. After breakfast, the trays return to the dish line. Derek scrapes leftovers into the waste bin. Half-eaten oatmeal, apple cores, spilled milk. He stares at it, wondering how much food gets thrown away every day while other men go hungry in the streets outside. Later that day, the kitchen becomes chaos again. Lunch rush. Derek moves with rhythm, flipping trays, stirring pots, and counting rations. The temperature climbs, and sweat pours down his neck. One of the younger inmates, Reggie, collapses by the dish sink. Hey, get up, man. Derek shouts, running over. Reggie's face is pale, his lips dry. He hasn't eaten much in days. Rumor has it he trades his meals for extra cigarettes. A guard rushes in, calling for the nurse. The scene freezes, steam rising, trays clattering, men staring. The nurse checks his pulse. He's dehydrated, she says flatly. Probably malnourished, too. As they carry Reggie out, Derek looks around the kitchen. He sees men who are alive but hollow, bodies moving, spirits drained. The food keeps them breathing, but not living. In the evenings, when the lights dim and the noise fades, the smell of grease and boiled cabbage lingers. Derek sits by the window slit, looking out toward the bay. He can see the faint reflection of the Golden Gate Bridge lights. That bridge leads to freedom. But for him, it's just decoration, something pretty that never gets closer. He pulls out a folded photo from under his mattress. His daughter, Maya, holding a cupcake. Her 10th birthday. The candle's flame is frozen in the picture, like time stopped the second it was taken. He sighs. You still love cupcakes, baby girl, he whispers. The next morning, the prison shakes with noise. Word spreads that an inmate found a cockroach baked into his cornbread. In the chow hall, chaos brews, men shouting, guards yelling for order. Derek watches from the side as two guards drag a man toward the door. His face is red, his hands cuffed behind his back. You feed us trash, he screams. We ain't dogs. The warden's office releases a statement hours later. All food safety standards are being followed. But inside the kitchen, everyone knows better. The equipment's decades old. The freezer doesn't always work. The bread often comes moldy. By noon, Derek's back in the line, serving lunch like nothing happened. But he notices the eyes around him, colder, angrier. Food has become rebellion here. It's the only thing they can protest without words. That evening, the power flickers during dinner. The lights go out for 6 seconds, just enough time for a fight to break out near the serving line. Plates crash. Someone yells. Guards rush in with flashlights. Derek ducks behind the counter. When the lights return, 2 inmates are on the floor, blood pooling under the flicker. He exhales. Another night in San Quentin. Another reminder that a tray of food can start a war. Later, back in his cell, Derek stares at the ceiling. His stomach growls, but he's not hungry. The food has no meaning anymore. It's routine, punishment, and memory mixed into one. He closes his eyes and dreams of his mother's kitchen, fried chicken sizzling in oil, the smell of cornbread fresh from the oven, and laughter bouncing off the walls. Then, suddenly, the dream cracks, replaced by the clang of metal doors. The next morning, he goes back to work. There's no choice. No protest. The kitchen runs like a machine, and he's a part of it. He chops onions, stirs pots, and stacks trays until his hands burn from the heat. But something's shifting in him. He begins to notice the small things, how the guards look away when they eat their meals, how the air always smells faintly of rust, How even the rats that scurry across the floor seem to eat better scraps. By the end of the week, he makes a decision. Quiet but final. He'll write a letter to a prison food reform group he once heard about from a volunteer. He knows it won't change much, maybe nothing at all, but it's something. A spark in a place built to kill hope. Days later, as he seals the envelope, he hears a voice behind him. Luis again. You writing home? Something like that, Derek replies. Luis smirks. Ain't no home left for people like us. Maybe not, Derek says, sliding the letter through the slot. But maybe there's still a table somewhere that ain't made of steel. The chow bell rings again, echoing through the tears. Derek looks toward the sound. Another meal, another day. The camera would fade now, panning slowly across the hall, over the trays, the faces, the noise, the heat. And beyond the walls, the Golden Gate Bridge glows in the distance. A world eating dinner in freedom, while just a few miles away, men choose silence and memory for supper. The first thing you notice about Rikers isn't the walls, it's the smell. A mix of bleach, sweat, and something faintly metallic that never quite leaves the air. The island sits on the East River between Queens and the Bronx, surrounded by water that reflects the city's skyline like a distant promise. From far away, it looks calm, an island of order. But step inside, and it feels like a place time has forgotten. Every day begins the same way. A buzzer blares, followed by the crackle of a speaker. Chow time. Line up. The sound bounces down concrete corridors where hundreds of men wake up at once. Inside dorm C-72, Tyrone Ty, Mallory sits up from his bunk, rubbing his eyes. His arms are marked with ink, a line on one, a name on the other. The tattoos were done years ago, long before the city lights became a dream seen only through barred windows. He ties the strings of his orange jumpsuit, then follows the shuffle of feet toward the mess hall. The floor is slick. The air is thick, and somewhere behind him, someone coughs, deep, rough, echoing. At Rikers, the food is as infamous as the name itself. Powdered eggs, bologna sandwiches, meatloaf that looks more gray than brown. It's not hunger that makes inmates eat, it's habit. The average meal costs less than $2.30 to prepare. Calories are counted, but taste is not. The morning tray slides across the metal counter. 2 pancakes stuck together, a square of margarine, and a carton of milk that expired yesterday. Ty takes his tray without a word. At his table sits Jose Rivera, a quiet man from Brooklyn who used to be a line cook. His hands still move like a chef's, delicate and precise even when breaking a slice of bread. Man, back in the day, I could make pancakes so fluffy they'd melt in your mouth, Jose says, shaking his head. Now look at this. Rubber. Ty smirks. Rubber's got more flavor. They eat anyway, because there's no other choice. Around them, conversations rise, low, tense, like thunder before rain. Someone curses about the cold food. Another complains about cockroaches in the kitchen. A guard on the mezzanine taps his baton against the rail. Silence returns instantly. After breakfast, the trays are dumped into gray bins, leftovers mixing with water and crumbs. The clatter echoes through the hall like a clock ticking down to nothing. Later that day, Ty returns to his dorm. The afternoon heat creeps in through the vents. The island may be surrounded by water, but inside, it feels like there's none to breathe. He sits on his bunk and stares at the ceiling, paint peeling, dust caught in the light. He remembers being a kid in Harlem, watching his mom cook stew on Sundays. She'd hum while stirring the pot, and the smell filled the whole apartment. That smell meant safety. It meant home. Here, food doesn't carry memories, it buries them. By noon, the lunch bell rings. The line forms again, slower this time. Some men skip meals entirely. The kitchen workers, inmates on rotation, ladle out portions under the eyes of officers. Each scoop is identical, measured to the ounce. Today's lunch, mystery meat, boiled carrots, and bread. The meat sits in a thin layer of greasy water. Ty stares at it, then looks up at Jose, who works in the kitchen today. You made this? Jose laughs under his breath. Brother, I wouldn't claim that even if I did. The food smells faintly of cleaning chemicals, the same mop water used to wipe the floors. But there's one thing worse than eating bad food at Rikers, missing a meal and being hungry later. Across the room, an argument breaks out. A younger inmate refuses to eat his tray, shouting that it smells spoiled. Guards close in, their radios crackling. The man's voice echoes, "This ain't food. This is punishment." He's led away, still shouting. The room goes silent again. That night, the sky over the East River turns purple. From the small window above his bunk, Ty can see the faint glow of Manhattan, freedom painted in lights. The wind carries the smell of salt and oil, mixing with the odor of the cell block. He lies awake, his stomach tight. Hunger has a rhythm here. It doesn't roar. It hums quietly, constant and patient. In the kitchen, the night crew works under buzzing lights. They prepare breakfast for thousands: oatmeal, apples, and milk cartons stacked high. The ovens rattle. A single cockroach crawls across the counter before disappearing into a crack. The men don't even react. You can't fight what's part of the place. Jose hums softly as he stirs the pot. "You know what's crazy?" he says to another cook. "You feed animals better than this uptown. But down here, this is how we live." The other man nods. "Ain't about food, man. It's about control." The next morning, rumors spread through the blocks. An inspection is coming. Food Services HQ from downtown Manhattan will visit the island. Suddenly, the kitchen changes. Trays are cleaned twice. Fresh vegetables arrive for the first time in months. Even the milk is new. Ty notices the difference immediately. The oatmeal's warmer. The bread is soft. "Yo, Jose," he says. "What happened?" "They finally decide we human." Jose grins. "Nah, man. They got guests." The next day, inspectors walk through the chow hall, clipboards in hand. Cameras follow. The inmates are quiet, eating this special meal: baked chicken, rice, and real fruit. For one day, it almost feels normal. Then the officials leave. By the next morning, it's back to cold eggs and gray meat. The illusion fades faster than the taste. Weeks later, Ty's name appears on the work rotation. He's assigned to kitchen duty, 6 days a week, starting at 4 a.m. He puts on the hairnet and gloves like everyone else, the fabric damp from the man who wore them before. Inside the industrial freezer, the temperature bites his skin. Boxes labeled U.S. Correctional Facility Supply line the shelves: frozen beef patties, canned beans, dehydrated potatoes. He checks the dates. Some are years old. He stops asking questions. During a break, he leans against the wall, sweat and frost mixing on his forehead. "You ever think about eating outside again?" Jose asks, lighting an imaginary cigarette. "Every night," Ty says. "But when I do, it makes this harder. Maybe that's why we dream. Not to make it easier, but to remember we still can." The afternoon rush comes fast. Steam clouds the air. Trays slide down the counter like an assembly line. Ty ladles soup into bowls, counting in his head: 1, 2, 3. The rhythm helps him forget where he is. Suddenly, the alarm blares. The line stops. Guards yell. Somewhere in the distance, a fight breaks out. Metal crashes. Someone screams. Ty freezes, his hands gripping the ladle. The sound of boots thunders down the hall. Within seconds, the kitchen is locked down. When the noise dies, the silence feels louder. A voice comes over the speaker. All units remain secured. Hours later, they're cleared to return to their cells. Dinner is late. Cold. The same gray stew reheated 3 times. Ty eats without tasting it. The only thing he can hear is the sound of the ocean hitting the shore outside. Calm, endless, unreachable. That night, he writes on the back of a napkin he saved from the kitchen: "One day, I'll eat something that don't taste like metal. One day, I'll eat it free." He folds the napkin and hides it under his pillow. The next morning, dawn breaks over the East River. Seagulls circle above the barbed wire. The city wakes, unaware that just across the water, thousands of men eat breakfast in silence. The tray slides through the slot again: eggs, toast, and milk. Ty picks it up, stares for a moment, and smiles faintly. "Same old story," he whispers. "Different sunrise." And somewhere beyond the walls, New York City moves on. Millions eating breakfast under bright skies, while an island of forgotten men chew their way through another day that tastes like survival. The morning air at Angola smells of soil and steam. A mist rises off the Mississippi River as the sun crawls over the levee, burning orange through the haze. In the distance, tractors rumble like thunder, rolling past rows of men bent low in the fields. They are not farmers by choice, but by sentence. Angola, the largest maximum security prison in the United States, is awake. Spread across 18,000 acres of farmland, Louisiana State Penitentiary sits on what was once a slave plantation. The land, still rich and red, remembers everything. Corn, soybeans, and vegetables grow here, tended not by free men, but by inmates wearing faded denim and straw hats. The food they grow fills their own plates. Every bite at Angola is born from the soil beneath their feet. Breakfast is served before dawn. Inside the mess hall, the clang of steel trays echoes like machinery. The line moves slow, heads down. Ladles scoop thick grits, scrambled eggs, and a biscuit. Always the same, always enough to keep men on their feet. The cooks, mostly inmates themselves, move in practiced rhythm. Steam rises from giant pots, carrying the smell of starch and sweat. "You eat fast here," one man once said, because time moves slow. At Angola, food is part of the punishment, but also part of the redemption. The farm feeds over 5,000 inmates 3 times a day. Most of what they eat is produced right there: vegetables from the fields, beef from the prison's own cattle herd, milk from its dairy. The prison kitchen runs like a small city: industrial ovens, conveyor lines, and storage rooms packed with canned produce. But the reality beneath that system is harsher. The fields are hot, the work relentless, and for decades the labor was unpaid or barely compensated. Critics called it modern slavery. Officials called it rehabilitation. The truth lies somewhere in between. Men growing food in the same soil where generations before them were enslaved. Lunch comes after hours in the fields. The sun sits high, beating down on the men as they return to the cafeteria. Inside, the air smells of beans, cornbread, and cabbage. It's not bad food by prison standards. Not spoiled, not cold, but it's food stripped of comfort. Calories over taste. Sustenance over pleasure. There are no spices, no seasonings. Just texture and heat. The trays clatter against metal tables as men sit shoulder to shoulder, eating quickly, eyes on their food. Conversations stay short. Angola isn't a place for small talk. In the kitchen, Mr. Reggie, a heavy-set inmate with arms covered in faded tattoos, oversees the line. He's been cooking there for 12 years, long enough to see menus change and faces disappear. "The food don't make you full," he says softly. "It makes you remember." He stirs a pot of red beans, a staple of Louisiana life, and smiles faintly. "Out there, this was my Sunday dish. In here, it's just Tuesday." Every meal at Angola carries history. The recipes draw from southern roots: cornbread, rice, beans, stewed greens, but the context has stripped them of culture. Once symbols of family and comfort, they've become routine rations. Still, the aroma of cornbread baking can stir something human in even the hardest men. Dinner comes just before sunset. The mess hall fills again, a low hum of exhaustion. Outside, the fields go quiet, and the guard towers cast long shadows. The meal might be stew or baked chicken, a roll, maybe fruit if you're lucky. The fluorescent lights give everything a yellow tint, a false warmth. Sometimes, inmates with longer sentences are assigned to the kitchen gardens, small plots where they grow herbs and vegetables for their own consumption. For them, food is therapy. The smell of basil, the feel of dirt under fingernails, it's a reminder of the outside world, one seed at a time. A few of these gardens have produced enough to sell locally, part of Angola's push for self-sufficiency. But the irony remains: the same soil that sustains them also imprisons them. Angola's food story is tied deeply to its annual prison rodeo, known as the wildest show in the South. Visitors from across Louisiana come to watch inmates compete in dangerous events: bull riding, racing, while others sell crafts, and, most importantly, food. Barbecue pits line the walkways, smoke filling the air with the scent of ribs and gumbo. For one day, prisoners become cooks again. They grill, fry, and serve to crowds, tasting freedom in the form of applause and seasoning. Those moments stay burned into memory. One former inmate, Jamal, recalled, "When I smelled that barbecue smoke, I forgot the walls for a second. I was just a man feeding people." After his release, he became a chef in New Orleans, running a food truck that serves ribs under the name the Angola Pit. Yet not every story is hopeful. Food shortages, cost cuts, and administrative neglect have haunted Angola's kitchens over the years. Inmates have reported spoiled milk, watered-down soups, and portions shrinking as budgets tighten. In 2016, Inspectors found sanitation lapses that sparked reform calls. The administration responded with promises, new training, better oversight, but change came slowly. Still, inside the prison walls, adaptation becomes survival. Men learn to season their food with creativity. They barter for hot sauce, mix ramen noodles from the commissary with beans, or sneak small packets of salt and pepper. Food becomes an art of resistance, an act of reclaiming taste in a tasteless world. Some of Angola's oldest inmates, men who've served decades, talk about food the way poets talk about memories. They describe Sunday dinners back home, church barbecues, or their mother's gumbo. To them, the institutional meals are reminders of everything lost. Yet, even here, food connects them to the past, and sometimes to each other. Angola's culinary programs have grown over time. A small group of inmates now trains in professional cooking through a reentry initiative. They learn baking, food safety, and nutrition. The goal? To turn kitchen labor into a trade. One instructor, a chef from Baton Rouge, once said, "If they can feed thousands in here, they can feed a city out there." For many participants, it's the first time anyone's offered them a skill or hope. The paradox of Angola is everywhere. Cruelty and care, punishment and purpose, despair and discipline, all coexisting in a place where the line between past and present blurs. At dusk, when the last light fades over the levee, you can still see the silhouettes of men walking back from the fields. Their shadows stretch across the dirt, merging with the land itself. They pass by the mess hall, where tomorrow's breakfast is already being prepared. The same grits, the same eggs, the same endless routine. The kitchen steam rises again, a ghostly cloud hanging above the rooftops. In that vapor, some see monotony, others mercy. As night falls, Angola grows quiet, save for the hum of generators and the distant sound of crickets beyond the fence. The day's labor ends, but the rhythm never does. Inside, men lie on their bunks, staring at the ceiling, remembering flavors from another life. A mother's cornbread, a street vendor's spice, a family dinner they may never see again. For them, food is not just sustenance, it's memory. And memory, in Angola, is the only thing they truly own. The sky over southeast London is gray, as if permanently overcast. Beyond the suburban streets and quiet shops, a perimeter of steel and concrete rises abruptly. HMP Belmarsh, the United Kingdom's most secure prison. Inside its walls, 900 men live in a world where silence is survival, and food is one of the few things that breaks the monotony of confinement. It's 5:30 a.m. when the first sound of keys echoes through the corridors. The lights flicker on in the cell blocks, white and cold. A guard's voice shouts, "Stand clear," as the heavy doors unlock one by one. The air smells faintly of disinfectant and old metal. Inmates begin their day with a ritual that hasn't changed in decades. Breakfast packs, a small carton of milk, cereal, bread, and a sachet of instant coffee. It's not a hot breakfast. It's not meant to be. It's measured, controlled, and efficient, like everything inside Belmarsh. The kitchen, deep within the compound, runs like a military operation. Industrial cookers hum under fluorescent lights, stainless steel counters glint like surgical instruments. Around 20 inmates, carefully selected for good behavior, form the kitchen crew. They chop, stir, and portion food for nearly 1,000 men every day. Each of them wears a blue apron stamped HM Prison Service, and each move is watched by security cameras and guards. The kitchen air is thick with steam, the smell of boiled potatoes, lentil stew, and baked pies. It's not gourmet cuisine, but by prison standards, it's steady and balanced. Each meal is designed to meet government nutritional guidelines. 2,500 calories a day, low sugar, limited salt. The food must keep inmates healthy, not happy. By 11:30 a.m., the lunch trays roll out on trolleys, stacked high with portions of rice, vegetables, and meat or vegetarian alternatives. Every tray looks the same, no matter who you are. Equality through uniformity. The serving line moves with quiet precision, voices stay low. The noise of cutlery against plastic trays becomes the rhythm of the day. Some of the inmates joke softly about the meals. "You can tell the day of the week by the smell," one says. "If it's fish, it's Friday. If it's curry, it's Monday. If it smells like nothing, it's Tuesday." Another laughs. "Best thing about Belmarsh food? You don't need to chew much. But for others, meals are a lifeline, the only moments when time feels structured. They sit at the same tables, in the same groups, day after day. Conversations shift from court dates to memories of food on the outside, fish and chips, roast dinners, curry houses in East London. One man, Malik, says quietly, "It's not the food I miss. It's eating without fear." Fear, at Belmarsh, is subtle. It's in the quiet glances, the unspoken hierarchy, the constant awareness of being watched. The dining halls are patrolled by guards, their presence heavy but routine. Fights are rare, not because tension doesn't exist, but because punishment is swift. Food is one of the few privileges no one wants to lose. The menu changes every 4 weeks. Choices are given on paper forms: halal, vegetarian, standard. It seems humane on the surface, a system of options, respect for culture and religion. But supply issues and tight budgets often blur those lines. There have been complaints of cross-contamination, of portions running short. Some inmates, particularly those observing religious diets, have gone hungry rather than risk uncertainty. Still, compared to older British prisons, Belmarsh is modern. The kitchen staff follows strict hygiene standards. Ingredients arrive from government-approved suppliers, labeled and logged. Nothing moves without paperwork. For an institution designed to contain the UK's most dangerous men, control extends even to the last grain of rice. The kitchen crew themselves find meaning in the work. Simon, an inmate in his 40s, tattoos fading under his sleeves, says cooking gives him purpose. "It's the only place in here where you can create something. You can't change your past, but you can make a good meal." His hands move quickly as he mixes dough for bread rolls, the smell of yeast filling the room like a memory of home. By evening, dinner is served early, around 5 p.m. The menu might be shepherd's pie, pasta, or stew, followed by custard or sponge cake. It's basic, but some dishes carry a hint of comfort. On Sundays, roast dinners appear on trays, slices of meat, roast potatoes, peas, and gravy. For a few minutes, the atmosphere softens. The taste of Sunday lunch is universal, even here. After meals, leftovers are collected with precision. Waste is logged, weighed, and disposed of under supervision. Belmarsh runs on efficiency, every crumb accounted for. The lights in the kitchen dim, and the hum of machinery fades into the distant buzz of the city beyond the walls. Inmates return to their cells. Some save parts of their bread or fruit for later, small rations for long nights. They brew instant coffee from their breakfast packs, sipping it slowly as if it were something finer. It's not about taste, it's about control. Inside Belmarsh, even the smallest act of choice, how to drink, when to eat, becomes an assertion of humanity. But the reality outside the kitchen is harder. Many have reported that portions are small, and that the food, though technically nutritious, lacks variety. "It keeps you alive," one former inmate said, "but it doesn't make you feel alive." Hunger isn't just physical here. It's emotional, a craving for color, for flavor, for connection. Prison reform advocates have long argued that food plays a critical role in rehabilitation. Studies have shown that better nutrition can reduce tension and aggression. At Belmarsh, officials have experimented with fresh produce and mental wellness programs linked to cooking, trying to balance punishment with dignity. It's a delicate line to walk. In recent years, a small education kitchen was added to the prison's training wing. Here, selected inmates learn basic culinary skills: how to chop, season, bake. The goal is re-entry preparation, to leave with a certificate, a chance at employment, a skill that can anchor them back to society. "When they cook," said one instructor, "you can see it, their posture changes. They start thinking like people again." Outside, the world imagines Belmarsh as a fortress, the place where high-profile figures await trial, where secrets and stories are locked away. Inside, the reality is more human, more fragile. It's a place where a cup of tea shared quietly in a cell can feel like peace, where the smell of baked bread can momentarily erase walls. By night, the prison falls silent again. The gray walls gleam under floodlights, the hum of London distant and unreachable. In the cells, men drift between memories, the taste of curry from home, the sound of a kettle boiling, the smell of fried onions from a market stall. Food, here, isn't about pleasure. It's about endurance, a way to measure time, to remind oneself that tomorrow still exists. Each meal marks survival, another day in a place built to test the limits of patience and identity. In the quiet, after lights out, one inmate writes in a small notebook, "They can take everything, but they can't take the memory of taste." That sentence, scratched in pencil under the hum of the fluorescent light, captures Belmarsh in its truest form. A world where even a plate of plain stew can become a symbol of resistance, hope, and the unbreakable human need for something more than just survival. The camera glides through a blinding white haze, the kind that clings to every breath in the frozen plains of Orenburg, near Russia's border with Kazakhstan. Beneath this frost, a fortress rises, Black Dolphin Prison. The name sounds poetic, almost gentle, but nothing about it is. This is where Russia sends those it never plans to release. The air here is so still that even sound seems to freeze. From above, Black Dolphin looks like a snow-covered labyrinth, its gray walls cutting through the icy tundra like scars. Beyond the gates, guards in thick winter coats pace through corridors built to erase time. Each hallway echoes with the synchronized steps of men who have long forgotten what freedom smells like. Inside, the rules begin before the first meal. Inmates here, most serving life sentences, are forbidden from sitting or lying on their bunks during the day. Their cells are lit 24 hours, and every movement is watched through a small slit in the steel door. Yet even in this world of concrete and cold, food remains the one thing that reminds them they are still human, barely. At dawn, the sound of boots and keys crack the silence. The breakfast bell rings, though it's not really a bell, just the clatter of a metal bucket down the corridor. Inside each cell, a slot opens, and steam escapes from what looks like a bowl of grayish porridge. It's kasha, a traditional Russian grain meal, watered down, unsweetened, and lukewarm. It's not meant to comfort, only to sustain. A small piece of black bread follows, dense and dry enough to last days. The inmates hold it carefully, as if it were currency. Bread is the only constant here, the only thing they can depend on when everything else, including the mind, begins to fade. The prison's kitchen is a world of its own, stainless steel vats hissing with barley soup, cabbage broth simmering in heavy iron pots, and guards watching every move of the kitchen workers. Each inmate assigned to food duty has been vetted by years of good behavior. Even then, their knives are chained to the tables. The cooks speak little. They stir soup with long wooden paddles, the smell of boiled cabbage mixing with the metallic scent of the air. "We feed them enough to live, not enough to think too much," one guard reportedly said in an interview. There's no cruelty in his voice, just routine, a rhythm he's learned to live with. Lunch is the largest meal of the day, though large is relative. A ladle of watery soup with chunks of potato and cabbage. Sometimes, if the week's supplies allow, a sliver of fish, usually pollock, dry and bony. It's served with more bread and thin tea that tastes faintly of metal. The prisoners eat standing or sitting on small stools fixed to the floor, the cold biting through their uniforms. They eat fast, not because they want to, but because the guards demand it. Talking is minimal. Eye contact avoided. And yet, in the midst of this controlled bleakness, something remarkable happens. They wait for Sundays. Sunday at Black Dolphin carries a faint trace of humanity. On this day, the menu changes slightly. Prisoners receive gretchka, or buckwheat, with a small spoon of butter or oil. Sometimes, there's a spoonful of sugar mixed into their tea. It's not a feast, but in this world of repetition, even a taste of sweetness becomes a celebration. Some inmates save it, savoring it at night when the lights dim and silence fills the hallways. The camera lingers on one inmate, his arms marked with faded tattoos of Orthodox crosses and names long forgotten. He sits on his metal bunk, staring at the steam from his cup of tea as if it's the only warmth left in the world. Food, he whispers to himself, is the only thing that doesn't lie. Inmates who work in the bakery, a small, windowless room within the complex, describe their task as both punishment and therapy. Kneading dough in the cold morning hours gives them rhythm, something predictable. The smell of baking bread softens the otherwise sterile air. For a brief moment, they remember kitchens from another life, mothers cooking, children laughing. It doesn't last long, but memory is sometimes stronger than walls. Dinner mirrors breakfast, porridge again, maybe thin barley soup. No variety. No choice. The goal is efficiency, not comfort. And yet, even this mechanical routine plays a crucial role. Nutritionists assigned by the Russian Federal Penitentiary Service ensure that every meal meets the minimum calorie requirement, around 2,400 calories per day. Enough to sustain strength, enough to keep labor possible. Occasionally, supplies run low, winter storms or transport delays can reduce rations. When that happens, guards distribute emergency meals, bread, hot water, and a few slices of salted herring. The salt stings, the bread crumbles, but the men eat quietly. Hunger here isn't a temporary discomfort. It's a constant reminder of obedience. Yet not every story inside Black Dolphin is frozen in despair. In recent years, reforms have crept slowly into its walls. A few cells have been equipped with small radios. Prisoners can listen to the news or Orthodox sermons. Some are allowed to read books from the prison library. Food reform initiatives, though limited, have aimed to make meals slightly more balanced. Dried fruits, more grains, and the occasional egg appear on the menu during holidays. The holidays are a rare time of emotion inside these walls. On Orthodox Christmas, the kitchen staff prepare kutya, a sweet dish of wheat grains, honey, and raisins. The aroma alone transforms the air. For a few hours, the men eat in silence, yet with a reverence that feels almost sacred. It's the only day we taste sweetness without guilt, a former inmate once said. But the emotional core of Black Dolphin's food story lies in its irony. The same hands that once caused destruction now plant and cook life's most essential thing. Some inmates tend to the prison's small vegetable gardens in summer, growing cabbage, potatoes, and onions. The produce feeds everyone, including the guards. It's a circle that no one speaks of, but everyone understands. As night falls, temperatures drop below freezing. Frost crawls along the window edges, and the wind hums like a distant howl. The camera moves through the narrow corridors once more, passing steel doors, frozen pipes, and faces half-lit by dim yellow bulbs. In the silence, a faint sound echoes, the clatter of a spoon against a metal bowl. It's the sound of routine, of survival, of the one small comfort that no system, no wall, and no sentence can fully erase. Outside, the black iron gates of the prison glint under moonlight. The Black Dolphin statue at the entrance, a small sculpture crafted by inmates years ago, stares silently into the night. Beneath it lies the paradox of this place. Even in the coldest corner of human existence, the warmth of a meal remains a fragile reminder that life, no matter how confined, still breathes. The skyline of Manchester hides a secret behind its red brick charm, a fortress of history and silence known simply as Strangeways. From above, it looks almost majestic, with its Victorian architecture and towering watchtowers piercing the gray English sky. But inside, the echoes of rebellion, hunger, and reform still live in every corridor. This is HMP Manchester, Britain's most notorious prison, reborn from ashes, rebuilt from chaos, and still haunted by the ghosts of its past. The story begins in the heart of the North, where cold rain beats against stone walls and pigeons circle the perimeter like restless souls. The air smells faintly of damp iron and detergent. Somewhere beyond the high fences and coiled razor wire, a whistle blows. Breakfast. For most inmates, that sound is both a beginning and an end. Breakfast at Strangeways is more routine than ritual. Each morning, inmates are handed a small plastic tray through a hatch, one packet of cereal, a small milk carton, and 2 slices of bread. Some days there's margarine or jam. On others, just the dry taste of ration simplicity. The food is not meant to please. It's meant to keep time, a daily metronome that marks survival inside these walls. The men eat in silence, the scrape of spoons against plastic echoing through the hallways. Guards patrol between rows, their boots clicking rhythmically on the tiled floors. The smell of instant coffee mixes with that of bleach and damp uniforms. It's not bad food, one inmate once said. It's just the same, every single day. You stop tasting after a while. The kitchen staff, a mix of officers and selected inmates, begin work long before sunrise. Steam fills the air as massive steel pots boil, with porridge and tea. Every motion is monitored, every utensil counted. For some prisoners, working here is a privilege, a chance to escape the monotony of the cells, to feel useful, even trusted. Inside the kitchen, a man named Ellis moves with precision. He's been here 6 years, his forearms marked with faded tattoos, symbols of another life. He stirs a vat of vegetable stew, the wooden paddle almost taller than him. "This place teaches you patience," he says quietly, wiping sweat from his brow. "You feed people who hate the world, and sometimes you realize you're one of them." His words linger in the humid air like steam. Lunch is the most substantial meal. Metal trolleys squeak along narrow corridors, pushed by kitchen workers who serve hundreds in a matter of minutes. The menu rotates on a 2-week cycle: beef stew, chicken curry, pasta bake, fish on Fridays. For many, it's the only moment of the day that feels remotely human. "Hot food means something in here," another inmate once explained. "It's like a small reminder that the world outside still exists." There's also a quiet politics behind every tray. Food is currency, a language spoken in silence. Extra portions are favors. A packet of sugar can settle debts. A slice of bread can buy peace for a night. But after years of riots and scandals, Strangeways has changed. Since the 1990 uprising that left parts of the prison in ruins, a different kind of discipline has taken root. The new Strangeways, renamed HMP Manchester, is no longer just a place of punishment, but of slow, deliberate reform. It's still strict, still claustrophobic, but it has learned that starvation of dignity breeds only rebellion. Now, inmates have access to educational kitchens, programs where they learn to cook, bake, and manage food safely. Inside one of these workshops, a small group of men prepares shepherd's pie under the guidance of a culinary instructor. The aroma of onions and minced beef fills the air. "This is the first time I've cooked something that tastes like home," one man says, smiling faintly. It's a quiet victory, invisible to the world but monumental to him. Afternoons inside Strangeways fall into rhythm. The clang of trays returned, the hum of conversation, the metallic echo of gates locking. Some inmates save their bread from lunch to snack on later. Others trade it for instant noodles or biscuits from the canteen. The prison economy thrives on these small exchanges, trust built one packet at a time. Dinner arrives early, long before sunset. It's often a lighter meal: vegetable soup, rice, or sandwiches with margarine and cheese. In winter, when the wind whistles through narrow corridors, the warmth of a hot bowl feels like gold. The older inmates sit quietly, eating slowly, while the younger ones rush through their meals, eager to return to the TV rooms or card tables. The guards watch, not unkindly, just cautiously. "Food keeps the peace," one officer admits. "You feed a man well enough, he's less likely to break the rules." It's not a philosophy, it's survival. There are still moments of humanity that pierce through the iron routine. On Christmas, the kitchen goes beyond its limits: roast chicken, potatoes, gravy, and pudding. For a few hours, the dining hall fills with laughter and warmth. The men sit together, sharing stories of families they might never see again. The guards stand by, pretending not to notice their smiles. "It's the one day you forget you're in here," Ellis says, looking around the hall as music plays faintly from a radio. But even in its calm, Strangeways carries the weight of history. Beneath the floors of the chapel lies the burial ground for those who met their end here. Men executed decades ago, their names carved faintly into stone. The past lingers like a shadow, even in the kitchen, where laughter now replaces the echoes of riots. The prison is still secure, still formidable, but it has changed its soul, not through force, but through food, education, and small doses of dignity. By late evening, the prison quiets again. Steam from the kitchen rises into the cold night air, drifting toward the city skyline. Inmates sit in their cells, sipping weak tea from tin mugs. Some stare out of tiny windows at the Manchester lights in the distance, each one a reminder of a world that continues without them. For them, food is more than fuel, it's memory. The taste of curry reminds one of a mother's kitchen. The smell of bread takes another back to a street corner bakery. Even instant coffee becomes a comfort, a thread connecting past and present. When the lights dim and the final roll call echoes through the halls, Strangeways settles into its nightly rhythm. Steady, unchanging, and yet no longer broken. It has learned that control and compassion can coexist, that feeding a man's body can sometimes quiet the unrest in his soul. Outside, rain begins to fall over Manchester again, tapping gently against the red brick walls. Steam escapes from the vents above the kitchen, disappearing into the night sky. In the distance, a faint church bell rings, and for a moment, the prison, the city, and the men within it all seem to breathe in rhythm. The corridors of Kingston Penitentiary, once the beating heart of Canada's prison system, are now silent. The clang of metal trays, the sharp hiss of boiling kettles, and the murmurs of hungry men waiting in line have faded into memory. Yet, if you walk through the abandoned mess hall today, you can still feel it, the echo of meals that once defined the rhythm of incarceration. For more than 170 years, this penitentiary fed some of the country's most infamous inmates, serial offenders, bank robbers, and political radicals alike. But the food here told a story far deeper than punishment. It was a reflection of Canada's evolving idea of justice, how it fed, reformed, and sometimes neglected those behind its walls. Every morning began before sunrise. The kitchen workers, inmates handpicked for good behavior, were already awake, donning faded white aprons stained from years of service. The scent of oatmeal, powdered milk, and boiled eggs filled the halls. It wasn't luxury, but in the early days, it was nourishment. Breakfast trays were lined up in strict order, one scoop of porridge, a slice of bread, and a small portion of margarine. Coffee, thin and bitter, was the closest thing to comfort most prisoners would taste before returning to their cells. By noon, the hum of the kitchen turned into a roar. Metal spoons clattered, and steam fogged the windows as cauldrons of soup bubbled away. Lunch at Kingston was often a balancing act. Too little seasoning, too much starch. The cooks had to stretch limited budgets to feed hundreds of inmates daily. For decades, lunch rotated through a predictable cycle: stew on Mondays, meatloaf on Wednesdays, and fish on Fridays. But behind these routines were men trying to find meaning in repetition. Some of them, like Tom Red Mallory, a lifer who worked in the kitchen for 12 years, used food as a form of survival. "The kitchen was our peace zone," he once told a journalist after his release. "You could forget you were an inmate for a moment. You were just cooking, creating something people would eat. Even if they hated it, it still meant something." During the 1970s and 80s, Canada's prisons began to reform their meal programs, inspired by rising human rights advocacy. Nutritionists were brought in, menus adjusted, and processed food reduced. Yet Kingston remained caught between eras, one foot in tradition, the other in reform. Inmates began demanding fresh fruits, less starch, and more protein. But the system often fell short. Food protests were not uncommon. In 1971, one of Kingston's largest uprisings began with a single complaint: over cold soup. What started as grumbling in the dining hall escalated into a riot that shook the entire prison. The kitchen was overrun, and for 2 days, guards lost control. When order was restored, it wasn't just the walls that bore scars. Trust between staff and inmates had crumbled too. After that, the administration made symbolic changes. The meals became slightly better, and inmates were allowed to eat in smaller groups rather than massive halls to prevent chaos. Still, the memory of rebellion lingered. Every bowl of soup became a silent reminder that dignity could not be rationed. By the late 1990s, things began to shift again. Prison kitchens across Canada were modernized, and private contractors took over meal preparation. The old kitchen of Kingston became a ghost of its former self, automated, distant, and soulless. Inmates now received prepackaged meals reheated in industrial ovens. The smell of freshly baked bread was replaced by the sterile scent of plastic and preservatives. Many older inmates lamented the change. Food, once a communal ritual that connected them to humanity, became mechanical. "It used to be bad food made by good people," one inmate wrote in a letter to the Toronto Star. "Now it's just bad food made by no one." But even in decline, Kingston's food culture held symbolic power. When the penitentiary finally shut its gates in 2013, the kitchen was among the last sections to close. Former inmates returned during guided tours, pointing at the stoves, the sinks, the trays, each a relic of their personal war with hunger and survival. The closure didn't erase Kingston's ghost kitchen. It only froze it in time. Visitors today can still see the serving lines, the rusted meal carts, and the graffiti scratched into the walls. Never forget the taste of freedom. What makes Kingston stand out isn't the menu, it's the emotion tied to it. Meals were more than sustenance. They were a daily negotiation between punishment and compassion. The Canadian system tried to strike a balance, but Kingston revealed an uncomfortable truth. You can't serve reform on a tray of powdered potatoes. Some former inmates have turned their prison experiences into culinary careers. One ex-convict from Kingston, Jacob J.T. Turner, opened a small diner in Ottawa called Second Chance Kitchen, using recipes inspired by what he learned inside. I started cooking because I was hungry, he said during a CBC interview. Now, I cook because I know what it means to be fed. Kingston's story is a haunting one, of men who learned that even behind steel bars, a warm meal could be the difference between rage and redemption. It's a reminder that food, no matter how simple, carries the power to heal or to harden. And as the camera lingers on the empty dining hall, light filtering through broken windows, the silence speaks louder than any voiceover. Plates once clattered here. Now, there's only the echo of what once was, a ghost kitchen that fed not just prisoners, but the conscience of a nation. In the quiet suburbs of Tokyo, far from the chaos of city lights, stands a fortress of silence, Fuchū Prison. It is Japan's largest correctional facility, a place where order is absolute, and even the smallest movement follows an invisible rhythm. The clang of doors, the shuffle of slippers, the faint echo of chopsticks tapping against tin bowls. Here, discipline is served with every meal. Inside these walls, food is not just nourishment. It is part of a ritual, a reflection of Japan's belief that structure heals what chaos has broken. Every inmate receives their meal with military precision. The trays are identical, the portions exact, the timing unchanging. Rice, miso soup, pickled vegetables, and a sliver of fish or tofu. No excess, no luxury, only balance. But to the men behind bars, this mechanical perfection carries another meaning. It is both comfort and control. A former inmate, known only as Sato, once described it this way: you don't eat because you're hungry. You eat because it's time. That's the difference between freedom and prison. Every meal is taken in silence. Talking is forbidden. Heads down, chopsticks steady, eyes focused on the tray. It's less a meal and more a meditation. The guards move like clockwork, inspecting posture, ensuring uniformity. Even the act of finishing your food must be precise. No leftovers, no noise. The kitchen itself runs like a factory. Dozens of inmates rise before dawn to prepare breakfast for over 2,000 men. They work under strict supervision, no improvisation, no personal touch. The recipes are government-designed, built to maintain health, not happiness. Yet even within this structure, a quiet form of pride exists. Some prisoners find dignity in doing their work perfectly, folding dumplings with care, slicing vegetables to exact millimeters. In that precision, they rediscover fragments of self-worth. Unlike Western prisons, where rebellion sometimes simmers beneath the surface, Fuchū's discipline leaves no room for it. Food riots are unheard of. Hunger strikes are rare. Here, compliance is not forced, it is learned. The longer you stay, the more you become part of the rhythm, until even your hunger obeys the clock. Visitors who've seen the inside of Fuchū describe it as almost otherworldly, a world without shouting, without chaos, only the steady hum of order. To the outsider, it may seem peaceful, but to those within, it's a silence that can break the mind. A sociologist who studied the prison once said, "Fuchū doesn't punish through deprivation. It punishes through repetition." Every bite of plain rice becomes a reminder that time itself is the harshest sentence. Still, there are stories of quiet transformation. Some inmates, upon release, claim the structure saved them. They learned patience, humility, the value of restraint. Others say it left them numb, unable to adapt to a world that moved without rules. The prison menu never changes much. It's predictable, precise, and painfully simple. But perhaps that's the lesson Fuchū offers. That order, when taken too far, tastes no different from confinement itself. And as the camera pans across the spotless trays, the last rays of the setting sun glint off polished chopsticks resting on empty bowls. The faint echo of footsteps fades, leaving only silence, cold, disciplined, eternal. From the chaos of San Quentin to the silence of Fuchū, this journey through prison kitchens has revealed one truth. Food is more than survival. It's power, control, comfort, and sometimes the only piece of humanity left behind bars. In the United States, meals reflect struggle and scarcity. In the United Kingdom, they reveal reform and resistance. In Canada, they carry memories of dignity long forgotten. And in Japan, they echo discipline so deep it swallows identity itself. These stories are not about what's on the tray. They're about what it means to eat when freedom is no longer yours to taste. So before you go, if this journey moved you, if it made you think differently about justice, dignity, and what it truly means to be human, backhand index pointing right, hit the like button. Speech balloon, share in the comments what prison meals are like in your country, or what you think they should be. Television, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next deep, human story behind the world's most hidden walls. Because every meal tells a story, and sometimes it's the story of who we are when no one's watching.